All right, fellow readers, welcome back to Ben's Book Summaries, your shortcut to the best of the literary world. Today, we're setting sail for a deep dive into Brandon Sanderson's Tress of the Emerald Sea.
Ah, Tress of the Emerald Sea, a great choice. A standalone fantasy novel, but still nestled within Sanderson's sprawling Cosmere universe.
The Cosmere Universe. Okay, cool.
Yeah, think of it like this. Um, each book is its own adventure, but they all share kind of a hidden, interconnected history.
I love that. So for anyone who may not be familiar with Tress, it's about this young woman, Tress, who lives a pretty simple life on a small island. But get this, her world's oceans aren't water. They're seas of vibrant, magical spores.
It's one of the most visually stunning settings I've ever encountered in fantasy. And Sanderson doesn't just stop at the visuals, he builds a whole ecosystem around these spores. They power ships, they influence societies, they even have unique magical
Wait,
properties.
so they actually sail on these spore seas?
They do. And there are these areas called Lunagree, where the moons hang low in the sky, showering the land with particularly potent spores. These areas are crucial to the plot. They drive many of the characters' motivations and actions.
That's wild.
Yeah.
Speaking of driving the plot, why don't we give everyone a little background on Sanderson himself?
Well, he's basically a rock star in the fantasy genre, known for his intricately built magic systems, complex characters, and of course that immersive world building we talked about. Tress was actually received very well by critics and fans alike, praised for its unique setting, adventurous plot, and charming protagonist.
Okay, great. So let's get back to our heroine, Tress. She starts off pretty ordinary, right? She loves baking, has a crush on her friend Charlie, but then things take kind of a dramatic turn.
Right. Her friend Charlie, the son of a powerful duke, gets kidnapped by this mysterious figure called the Sorceress. And everyone thinks he's dead, but Cress refuses to believe it.
Right.
What's interesting here is that, Sanderson doesn't make Tress some obvious chosen one.
Uh,
Her strength comes from her sheer determination to rescue Charlie.
and that determination leads her to some pretty drastic measures. I mean, she disguises herself as a king's mask, like a powerful inspector, and she sneaks onto a ship to escape her island.
It's a bold move. It speaks volumes about her character. You know that disguise is symbolic of her taking on this new identity, one that allows her to access power and resources that she wouldn't have otherwise.
It's like she's shedding her old life to become someone capable of taking on this quest. And of course, that leads her to the pirate ship, the Crow Song.
Captained by the formidable Captain Crow. Now, Crow is a fascinating character. She's what's known as a spore eater, meaning she's infected by this parasitic ether that compels her to piracy to obtain water.
Oh,
It raises all these questions about free will and the influence of external forces.
okay, hold on. So is she choosing to be a pirate, or is this ether thing controlling her?
That's the central dilemma with her character. Sanderson doesn't give us any easy answers, which I appreciate. And her crew is just as interesting. There's this talking rat named Huck. There's a deaf quartermaster, and a skilled but troubled cannon master named Anne. They're all bound by loyalty to Crow, but also this shared desire for redemption.
Redemption. What do you mean by that?
Well, they've all done things they regret. Being part of Crow's crew is a way for them to seek forgiveness, either from themselves or others.
Got it. So where does Tress fit into all this? I mean, she's on a pirate ship trying to rescue her friend. How do these things even connect?
Well, that's where the world building really comes into play. Remember those Lunagree we were talking about?
Right.
The Sorceress's Island is located in the most dangerous one of all, the Midnight Sea.
The Midnight Sea. What's so special about it?
It's a place where constant rain creates these massive, deadly spore formations. Legend has it that no one who sails into the Midnight Sea ever returns. It's also rumored that the Midnight Spores create these monstrous creatures that serve the Sorceress.
So Tress basically needs to sail into this mythical deadly sea to find her friend.
Exactly. And she can't do it alone. That's where Captain Crow and her crew come in. But convincing a pirate captain to sail into the most dangerous sea in the world, that's no easy feat. So this is where Tress's character really starts to shine. Remember, she's not a warrior or a sorceress. She's a baker with a sharp mind and an even sharper wit. She uses her knowledge of the different types of spores, like the verdant spores that can grow into strong vines, and the rosite spores that can contain water, to bargain with Crow and gain her trust.
So she uses her baking skills to kind of navigate a pirate crew. That's pretty clever.
Exactly. She understands that these pirates are driven by more than just greed. They're a complex group, each with their own desires and their own vulnerabilities. Tress taps into that, ultimately persuading them to help her.
I'm starting to see why people love this book so much. It's not just about the action and magic, it's about the characters and their relationships.
Absolutely. And as Tress spends more time with the crew, she learns about their pasts, their struggles, their dreams. There's a beautiful line where she says, "I realize that even pirates have stories worth listening to,"
Oh, like that.
which highlights her growing empathy and her ability to see beyond superficial appearances.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of that quote, everyone is fighting a battle you know nothing about.
Exactly. And as Tress gets to know the crew, she starts to question her own assumptions about, good and evil. These pirates, who she initially perceived as dangerous criminals, turn out to be far more nuanced and complex.
It sounds like this journey is changing her, pushing her to grow in ways she never imagined.
It absolutely is. In fact, there's another great quote where she says, "I used to think I was a cup of tea. Warm, comforting, familiar. Now I realize I'm a tankard of ale. Strong, bitter, and not for everyone." It perfectly captures her transformation from a naive island girl to a resourceful and resilient woman.
Wow, I love that imagery. It speaks to that universal experience of leaving behind the comfort of who you were to become who you're meant to be. But it's not always easy, is it?
No, it's not. And Sanderson doesn't shy away from the challenges and sacrifices that come with growth. Tress faces, dangerous storms, battles with other pirates, and even encounters those terrifying midnight spore creatures.
The creatures actually exist. They're not just a legend.
Oh, they're real. And they're as creepy as they sound. They're formed from the midnight spores, and they're linked to their host, sharing their senses and emotions. It's a fascinating and unsettling exploration of the darker side of magic.
So how does Tress deal with these creatures? I mean, she doesn't exactly have superpowers, right?
Right. But remember, she's resourceful and quick-witted. She uses her knowledge of spores to create distractions, traps, and even makeshift weapons. It's Sanderson at his best, showing how ingenuity and a deep understanding of a magic system can be just as powerful as brute force.
I can see why people call him a master of magic systems.
Yeah.
He makes it all sound so believable, even though it's, completely fantastical.
And he doesn't just throw in magic for the sake of spectacle. He uses it to explore deeper themes, like the balance between creation and destruction, the interconnectedness of all things, and the consequences of wielding power.
Okay, so Tress and the crew are battling storms, creatures, and probably their own inner demons.
Yeah.
What about Charlie? Is he just, waiting to be rescued?
Well, that's where things get really interesting. Remember Huck, the talking rat?
Yeah.
It turns out he's actually Charlie,
Wow.
cursed by the sorceress.
That's a twist I did not see coming. So all this time, Tress has been sailing with her kidnapped sweetheart in rat form.
Exactly. It adds a whole new layer of emotional complexity to the story. Tress is not only fighting to rescue Charlie, but also to break the curse that's trapped him in this animal form.
And then knowing Sanderson, there's probably a deeper meaning behind that curse, right?
There always is. The curse could be seen as a metaphor for, the limitations we impose on ourselves, the ways in which we can become trapped by our fears or past traumas.
So it's not just about, physically rescuing Charlie.
No.
It's about helping him break free from whatever is holding him back emotionally.
Exactly. And that, I think, is one of the most compelling aspects of the story. It's not just an action-packed adventure. It's a journey of self-discovery, both for Tress and for Charlie.
All right, so they finally reach the Sorceress's Island, right? What happens next?
Well, I don't want to spoil all the surprises, but let's just say the confrontation with the sorceress is epic.
Okay.
And Tress's ingenuity with spores plays a crucial role in their victory.
Of course it does. Sanderson wouldn't let us down like that. But what about the crew? Do they all make it out alive?
That's something you'll have to discover for yourself. But I will say that the ending is both satisfying and thought-provoking. It's not your typical happily ever after, but it leaves you pondering the complexities of choice, consequence, and the meaning of true freedom.
Okay, now I'm really intrigued. Speaking of intrigue, we haven't even touched on that Cosmere connection you mentioned earlier. Does Tress tie into Sanderson's other works in any significant way?
It does. Remember Hoyd, the mysterious character who pops up in many of Sanderson's books.
Yeah.
He makes a subtle but important appearance in Tress. For those familiar with the Cosmere, it hints at a much larger story unfolding behind the scenes.
Whoa, hold on. Are you telling me there's a whole secret layer to this book that only Cosmere fans will pick up on?
Exactly. And that's part of the fun of reading Sanderson. He rewards his dedicated readers with these little Easter eggs that add depth and complexity to the story. But even if you're not familiar with the Cosmere, Tress is a fantastic standalone adventure that stands on its own merits.
All right, before we wrap things up, I have to ask, what's the one thing you want listeners to take away from our deep dive into Tress of the Emerald Sea?
I think for me, it's the idea that growth isn't always comfortable or pretty. It can be messy, challenging, and sometimes even painful. But it's through those challenges that we discover our true strength and resilience. I think Tress of the Emerald Sea really embodies that idea.
I completely agree. Tress's journey is a testament to the transformative power of embracing the unknown and pushing beyond, our self-imposed limitations. And it's not just her. Many of the characters, even Captain Crow, grapple with the idea of change and what it means to break free from the patterns that hold them back.
And speaking of breaking free, let's talk about that ending. Without giving too much away, Tress and Charlie do eventually make it back to their island, right?
They do, but as we've discussed, Sanderson isn't one for simple fairy tale endings. Their homecoming is far from the joyous reunion they might have expected. Is it because of what they've been through, the trauma of the journey, the changes they've undergone?
That's certainly part of it. Charlie especially struggles to readjust to human life after being a rat for so long. It's like he's lost a part of himself, the part that connected him to that simpler life, on the island.
It makes you think about the lasting impact of trauma,
Mm.
how it can fundamentally change, who we are even after the immediate danger has passed.
Exactly. And then there's the king's decree, which throws the entire island into turmoil. He announces that anyone can leave if they choose, and he offers a substantial reward to those who stay for 20 years.
Wait, what? Why would he do that?
It's a complex situation. On the surface, it seems like a generous offer, a way to revitalize the island. But it also creates this sense of instability and uncertainty. People are suddenly forced to question their roots, their loyalties, and their dreams for the future.
It sounds like a recipe for chaos.
It definitely shakes things up. And for Tress and Charlie, it throws their own plans into disarray. They're no longer sure where they belong or what their future holds.
It's like the journey never truly ends. Even when they return home, they're still faced with choices and challenges that force them to grow and adapt.
And that, I think, is one of the most powerful takeaways from Tress of the Emerald Sea. Life is a constant journey of transformation. We're always evolving, learning,
Mm.
and redefining ourselves in response to the world around us.
It's both exhilarating and terrifying, isn't it?
Absolutely. But as Tress's story shows us, it's in those moments of uncertainty and upheaval that we often discover our true potential and forge our own paths.
And Sanderson throws in one final twist, right? Something about Hoyd and the sorceress.
Oh, yes. He couldn't resist leaving us with a bit of a cliffhanger. For those who haven't read the book, I won't spoil the details, but let's just say it hints at a larger game being played, one that extends far beyond the confines of this particular story. It's a reminder that even in a standalone novel, Sanderson is always weaving threads that connect to his grander Cosmere universe.
So like a wink to the dedicated fans, a promise of more to come.
Exactly. And that's what makes Sanderson so captivating as an author. He creates these intricate worlds and compelling characters that leave you wanting more, always eager to see how each story fits into the larger tapestry of the Cosmere.
Well, I think it's safe to say that our deep dive into Tress of the Emerald Sea has left us all with plenty to ponder. And for those who crave even more insights into Sanderson's work and the mysteries of the Cosmere, be sure to check out the full episode of Ben's Book Summaries.
Until then, happy reading. And remember, as Sanderson himself often says, there's always another secret to uncover.